Let's make the twisted ear warmer using our Sentro circular knitting machine. You can make this project using the 48 needle knitting machine or the 40 needle knitting machine or the King Addi 46. The yellow yarn, this project was made on the 48 needle Sentro circular knitting machine, so the overall width of the project will be 7 inches. Using the same type of yarn, I also made this project on the 40 needle, so your overall width will be 5 inches. I did 90 rows for each of the projects, and so they came out to 9 inches once finished, as it was the same yarn used, just in a different colorway. So for this project, I used the Premier Anti-Pilling Worsted yarn for the knitting machine, and this yarn is very soft and works very well in the knitting machine, so I recommend this for beginners because it's not going to get caught on itself like wool yarn would. To start out, I like to start on my white needle, and we need to start with the waste yarn cast on. Once I'm back to my white needle, I want to put the yarn down into the yarn holder, and I like to crank out about 6 or 7 rows. The waste yarn needs to be in a similar weight yarn, but in a completely contrasting color to your project yarn. This yarn will not be a part of the project once it's finished. Now we're going to add on our project yarn. You'll see I stopped right before the white needle because that's where I want to start my row. Add on the project yarn, make sure it's all the way down in the front completely to the back of the yarn holder, and I have it in the middle bar of my yarn tensioner. You'll also notice that I use my left hand to guide the yarn, and I use that for tension to help create very even stitches, and that helps me not have as many dropped or tuck stitches as well. I don't just rely on the yarn holder itself or the yarn tensioner on the machine. After you crank out 90 rows, place your yarn in the middle of your machine, and now we're going to do the waste yarn cast off. I'm using the same type of waste yarn. This was just scrap yarn I had in red. That's also a number 4 worsted weight yarn, so very similar in weight. I like to do about 10 rows for the cast off. Once done, remove it from your machine, crank around once, and then crank around the second time, and your project will fall off the machine. It makes it really easy to remove the fabric. Now we're going to close both ends of the tubes to flatten it. I put the tail ends of the project and waste yarn down at the bottom, and I count up to 24 on both sides because I'm using the 48 needle knitting machine. If you're on the 40, you'd want to count up to 20 on both sides. This is so we can close the tube flat and even on both sides because we have 48 stitches. So I pick up both sides. Those are the 24th stitches. And we're going to slip stitch it back and forth. Counting this way is making it so the tube is flat, but you won't have any twists in the tube when we go to flatten the other side. And now we're making this X or zigzag shape, picking up each stitch of the project yarn. That's why it's really important to have a contrasting color for the waste yarn, because you'll see a row of red, then yellow, and then the rest of the red. So that first row of yellow is my project yarn, and those are the stitches I want to pick up. Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side, and you always want to make sure you don't skip any of those yellow stitches, because when we remove the waste yarn, if we had not secured one, it will drop that row and it will unravel. So especially at the end, they can kind of hide in there. So you might just need to double check and count your stitches as you're slip stitching them together. If you see any holes in your zigzag pattern, you skipped a stitch, so make sure you go pick it up before we remove the waste yarn. Now making the twisted part of our ear warmer, take both ends of the tube that we have flattened and we're going to cup them in our hands, making a C shape and a backward C shape and interlocking them together. Now it kind of looks like a giant S. So you can see that letter S coming together, and we want to line up the edges of all 4 layers, and then with the tail end of our working yarn, hopefully you left a long tail. I did put a note in that. If you need to just add extra yarn, you can do that too. And with our darning needle, we're going to go through all 4 layers just in the top knit stitch, and we're going to sew it back and forth, sewing everything together along the edge until we get to the other side. And now we're going to knot the 2 tail ends of the working yarn together, making a knot. And then I like to then put them on my darning needle again, and then you can weave in your ends, and then I like to hide those ends in between the 2 layers of fabric and cut off any excess. Now flip it right side out, and here is what your ear warmer is going to look like. And you get that really cute, fun twist in the front. And your earwormer is now complete. So this one was made on the 48 needle circular knitting machine. You can also make this on the 40 needle Sentro circular knitting machine. Here's how the two look side by side. The 40 needle will just be a little bit narrower. And here's how they look on me. I have a 21.5-inch head circumference. And again, I did 90 rows for each project. I could probably get away with 80 rows, but depending on your yarn and how big your head circumference is, you might need to add or subtract rows for it to fit you. And these also double as a really fun, cute looking neck warmer as well. So I hope you enjoyed this project. Hit that like and follow button for more. Happy crafting, everyone.